Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Tony, I've done a lot of statistical deep dives. I'm looking into this week's game a tremendous amount because I think for the first time in quite a while, I have a chance for rushing for more yards than the team Ohio State is playing. I think it's a possibility. Probably not, but maybe.
There is an opportunity, and this Purdue running game that we will eventually talk about, it's not good. And I don't think they even care that it's not good. It's one of those things like, look, we didn't come here to run the ball. That's not what we're about. It's, judging a pharmacist's penmanship. It's like, come on. I'm here to count pills, not, have a perfect block letters. I mean, there's a time and a place to run the ball. It is not Purdue, and it never will be Purdue. It has not been Purdue since Jim Coletto was around, and he is way gone. And so, you don't need it, don't want it. Got rid of it back in 1995, 96 when they brought in Joe Tiller, and ever since then, don't even need to talk about it.
And yes, then I don't expect they will be talking about it. However, we may be talking a little bit about their passing game because their passing game, as it has been on and off since Joe Tiller arrived, pretty good.
Pretty good. And Aiden O'Connell, their quarterback this year, playing well, completing 71.6% of his passes. We will get into that. We'll talk about the game, talk a little bit about some things that Ryan Day had to say today on his radio show and during his lightning round. One of the things that I want to talk about first, Tom, is Steel Chambers. Ryan Day on his radio show talking about Steel Chambers and how when they get on the plane to go wherever, they give the team a meal. The meal going there, like getting on the plane, was Chick-fil-A chicken sandwiches. And he said he was going to tell Steel Chambers that you're only playing one half. You only get one half of the sandwich. And then on the way home, I think he said he told Steel Chambers that you played so well in your one half that you get the entire sandwich. So that's, Ryan Day making a little bit of a joke there, but the Steel Chambers thing is not a joke because Ryan Day said that, Nebraska won the toss and they deferred. So Ohio State took the ball. He said if Ohio State had won a toss, they were going to take the ball because that would have given them one more defensive possession with Steel Chambers on the field, essentially. Like, probably would have given them another defensive possession in the second half, which seems like I am a proponent of deferring. That way the opponent will accept the ball and you will never have the opportunity to give an opponent back-to-back possessions, like the last possession of the first half, the first possession of the second half. I hate that. Never liked it. And I don't agree with taking the ball, but I've never heard of this kind of reasoning before. And maybe it happens all the time when you lose a defensive player as key as Steel Chambers. But I was pretty shocked by that. What do you think?
Well, it was surprising to me because you don't normally think of that being what a decision hinges on. But Steel Chambers is not technically speaking, a starter yet. Give it until what time were you anticipating kickoff on Saturday? Down to the minute.
3:37, 3:40, something like that.
Okay, 3:37, 3:40. I mean, assume Ohio State has Purdue may take the ball, so Ohio State Ohio State probably defers. Purdue might choose to take the ball. So let's say kickoff gets you to 3:38. I mean, maybe there's a TV timeout, but somewhere in that 3:38 to 3:40 range. Tony, I expect Steel Chambers to be a starter for the Ohio State University Buckeyes on their defense. If you are deciding game strategy based around one player, I mean, what else am I supposed to read into that? And Day was asked on the lightning round afterwards, hey, I heard you say this on the thing. So is he a starter? And Day's like, I could, that's really a question for Al Washington. I don't know. I mean, I don't even know what a linebacker is. I only speak offense. So, I mean, let me spoil the surprise for you, friends. If Steel Chambers is healthy on Saturday, and we have no reason to suspect that he is not healthy, Steel Chambers is going to be a starting linebacker on Saturday and probably remain a starting linebacker for the remainder of the season unless he is hurt or something dramatically changes. You're not swinging your first half versus second half kickoff strategy decisions based on, well, our backup running back is going to have to miss the first half. Like you're not swinging that based on a backup. You are making that when this is a player who you view as a significant difference maker, who that is one drive. You are concerned you're swinging your entire game strategy based on one drive with one player. If that player is not a starter, well, that doesn't make any sense. So I think, friends, we may have just puzzled out the answer to this riddle.
And he did start the second half, but yeah, I like this is almost like, say, CJ Stroud throws an interception and then he tackles the ball carrier, but gets flagged for targeting and gets ejected and also has to miss the first half. You would at that point win the toss and kick because you want as many possessions as possible. With CJ Stroud in the second half, this is the thought process that they went with, and I understand it. But now I need 75% of the snaps with Steel Chambers. I appreciate your time and your commitment to Roger Mitchell, but if this is if this is their thinking and this is their doing and this would have been their actions, then I can't have this 50-50 stuff anymore. And I don't think it will be. I think now you're to the point where, okay, we've seen the cream rise to the top. We've seen a guy who just continues to elevate the defense and make plays. And now it's his time. And we still need you, Taraja. But right now, the production is there. We can't go away from it.
Yeah, and this is in line with things that I think we have all been hearing and things that we have been seeing, and it's like, this is something that I remember talking to Ross Fulton about maybe 2 weeks ago about, so does Steel Chambers need to be starting? Like this is not like it's coming out of the blue, but this is also, like the old recruiting axiom, watch what they do, not what they say. In this case, it's kind of ironic because Ryan Day is saying something about what he was doing. So just pay attention to the doing part and not the saying part. But, if you were willing to swing an entire game strategy around that, that's all you need to know. That's the answer. Even if that wasn't his answer, that's the actual answer.
That is the actual answer. Another possible answer for the troubles with the Ohio State running game came in the fact that Nick Petit-Frere missed some time at practice last week with a family issue, a loss in the family. So they had to move some stuff around. And then day of game, Dwan Jones and some other guys weren't feeling well. I believe Dwan Jones said on Wednesday is a sausage biscuit issue. And so there are some issues there. And maybe some of that played into Ohio State not being able to run the ball as well as they would have liked. There are certainly there are clips out there on Twitter where you see some not lack of effort, just incorrect effort, I guess, and some mistakes made from the Ohio State offensive line. So maybe that played into it as well. And I was wondering, like, when you have all of these options, does it make it easier to or harder to stick with, like, we just need to do these things and with these guys? And it's like when you have different options, which is great, and they have utilized them very well, but does it keep them from, we do this and we're going to stick with this?
Well, I mean, you almost have to say it does. I mean, I don't know. There has been enough continuity issues, and I'm going to spoil a little bit of Friday's morning scoop for you. I talked to Ross Fulton, and we're talking about a lot about the offense, and he wrote about the offense this week. And one of the things that he views as a potential issue there is there's not a ton of continuity because they keep shuffling. Oh, Matt Jones is the left guard this drive. Oh, now Matt Jones is the right guard now. You hear all the time that the offensive line has to gel and the offensive line has to move as a unit and the offensive line needs time to just work together and get used to each other. And, I've been next to this guy for the last 3 years. We just communicate telepathically, and I don't need, because you get these combo blocks, you get, hey, when the line does this, then I know, hey, my rule is I have to go do this thing. I can let that guy go and let the guy next to me get him, and I can move up to the second level. All that stuff takes time, takes playing next to other guys. They haven't had that because they keep shuffling guys around. And there's a very big positive to that, which is if someone gets hurt, you still have 5 starting offensive linemen, and that's wonderful. But when you're seeing the mistakes that you're seeing right now, in terms of guys just communication issues, just, fast decision-making issues with guys, maybe maybe not being in a position where they haven't been as much during the course of the year. None of those guys are starting in the same position they were last year. So you're going to have some first year player mistakes, and you have not even had full season worth of reps to, have now once you're this far into the season, these 5 guys are now used to working with each other. You don't even have that because they've been shuffling guys around so much. So yeah, I think unquestionably that has been an issue. And that's part of the, you can chalk up some of the running game issues, some of the short yardage issues, and, some of the big lack of big play issues as well to the offensive line.
Absolutely. Ryan Day also confirmed my place kicker theory of if you have a good place kicker, that it has affected his thinking. And also, when your defense is playing well, you can go ahead and take the points and rely on your defense. And it's about winning. It's not about winning by how much. So I know you think 50 points wins a game better than 30 points, but if the opponent only scores 20, they're both equal, Tom. So it's not about scoring as many points as you can. It's about winning. Sometimes a 3 is as good as a 7 if the opponent only scores 2. So thoughts?
So Ohio State's going to be taking a lot of intentional safeties. Is that what I'm hearing is the game strategy this week? Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Like, as long as you trust your defense and you can rely on your defense to not give up 7s, like, sure, absolutely. How confident are you that you can rely on your defense to give up 3s and not 7s, or 0s and not 7s? Because it's been a mixed bag this year. What was you didn't say it was a bad effort? It was a incomplete effort, something like that.
Wrong effort.
Wrong effort. Yeah, there has been some wrong effort from the Ohio State defense this year. So yes, incorrect effort. Yes. I mean, moving forward, like, yes, if they win the next 4 games, they're going to be in the college football playoff. If they win the 2 games after that, sure, like, absolutely, you will be the national champion. You win 6 games in a row, you are the national champion. No one is going to stop you. So yes, technically you need to win the games, and yes, that is the important end result. You're going to have to score touchdowns. You're going to have to not go 2 for 10 in the red zone or whatever they've been the last 2 weeks. Like, that is not going to cut it for the next 6 games that they need to win. So sure, yes, ultimately winning is right. Winning is the most important thing. You don't need to win with style points, but sometimes you got to score points to win. Like, you can score 30, you don't have to score 50, but scoring 30 doesn't do you any good if you're giving up 35.
You don't win friends with field goals, I think, is what you're trying to say, Tom.
I believe I've tweeted that GIF out. You don't win games with field goals in The Simpsons conga line dancing. Yes, I believe I've tweeted that out multiple times in the past. Yes.
I am looking forward to seeing how this secondary does against a Penn State offense that will throw the ball as much as they can, but sometimes it's not as effective as other times. And I think some of that is dependent upon, do they hit some big plays? Because that'll take their 6-yard per pass average up to 7, 8, 9. And that's when they really get effective. Purdue has had 10 40-yard pass plays this season, same amount as Ohio State. The Buckeyes have given up 4, and Purdue has given up 7. But this is going to be not just a situation where they have to contain David Bell. They've got TJ Sheffield, they've got Milton Wright, they've got a tight end with 36 catches or so. A lot of these guys, the 3 receivers I've mentioned, I remember hearing about them from Ohio State recruiting. Like, they didn't, I don't think they ever offered Sheffield, but he was a guy that they were talking to. Milton Wright, there was an offer, but I don't know if it was an offer. And I think they actually did really want David Bell. And he said, thanks, but no thanks. I want to be a Boilermaker. And he's, 1,000-yard receiver as a true freshman. You can't fault that. And he's going to have this. I assume this is going to be his last year in West Lafayette, but he's already got a 1,000-yard season this year. So they spread the ball around. They've got 3 guys with over 30 catches, not including David Bell, who has 64. So it's not just Bell, but he's the guy that you have to be worried about. So I know we looked forward to the Jahan Dotson, Denzel Burke thing. Certainly looking forward to the Denzel Burke, David Bell thing. What I think Ohio State needs to be concerned about is, as Ryan Day said, they'll move David Bell all over the place. And you have to watch out for when it's Lathan Ransom against him or something like that, where we know Lathan Ransom is not the best guy in man coverage. And if they get that situation, he's going to need help. And Bryson Shaw can't be sucked in by a crossing route when almost you just have to be like, don't worry about anything in front of you other than number 3. Just make sure that he doesn't beat you. Because if he doesn't beat you, Tom, I think who does? I mean, it's 1,000 paper cuts or whatever, but David Bell is like a katana sword.
Right. You just have to not let the guy, this is the don't let Michael Jordan beat you. Like you want to, if Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman are going to beat you, like that's fine, but you don't let Michael Jordan beat you. And I don't know that Purdue even has a Scottie Pippen on this team. Scottie Pippen was pretty good at basketball back in the day. But you go through the average yards per catch. David Bell 15.6. Everyone else is like, there are other guys who are in the 30s are 9.29, 9.89, and 10.22 yards per game. 125 for David Bell, 41, 44, 35 for the other 3. Like you can just, if you stop David Bell, you stop Purdue. Like that's David Bell, like single-handedly beat Iowa. Like, I mean, just like by himself beat Iowa. He's basically single-handedly beat Michigan State. Like if you stop David Bell, Purdue is just not going to do anything. They can do little bits of stuff here and there, but and if you go back to the bold prediction show, I don't think they're going to completely stop David Bell. David Bell is a very, very good receiver. And you have seen what it looks like when Purdue has wide receivers who Ohio State wants on their team. Like you may remember this from games such as 2018, which didn't go great for Ohio State. So I heard Day talk about them moving Bell around, and you're right. I mean, that is you have some matchup concerns there. And I assume if Ryan Day is talking about this, Ryan Day has spoken with the defensive coaching staff, and the defensive coaching staff is also aware of David Bell, the Purdue's proclivity to move him around, and have made some adjustments to deal with that. But you have to assume at some point Purdue is going to just scheme him open at some point. Like this is a defensive coaching staff that had Tuf Borland and Devontae Smith at one point last year, as you may or may not recall. You have to be able to not have that be the situation, because if that's a situation, it's not on Lathan Ransom, just like it wasn't on Tuf Borland. Like that's on the coaches. If that's a situation, that's on the coaching staff.
And you can bracket him, you can put a safety over top of him and limit him. I mean, we saw Chris Olave go against Indiana and Penn State combined for 5 catches, and Ohio State, yes, they have other guys they can go to, but Purdue does as well. The thing is, like, if you take away the top receiver, Ohio State is going to, Jackson Smith and Jigba and Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson may or may not play this week, but like you can, if there's only one thing an offense can do, you can hinder that, and you can attempt to take that away. But then it becomes then it's up to David Bell to make plays, which he does, and scheme it open, which Purdue does very well. Jeff Brom is an offensive guy, and Ryan Day has a whole bunch of respect for him because of they're similar in their aggression, the way they see the game, and we also know Jeff Brom will use whatever trick play he can come up with. So there's a lot of, it's going to require some eye discipline for Ohio State, but we've talked about this in the years past. You can't just be looking for the trick plays. You have to rely on your keys, rely on your eyes. And because if you're looking for trick plays, David Bell he just ran a 9. That's all he did. He just ran right down the sideline. And, there was no trick there. So worry about that guy. Don't worry. Don't even use the defensive line other than to pass rush. I mean, Purdue has 2 games of 100 yards rushing this season. It took over 40 carries in both games to get there. They're averaging like 2.3 yards per carry. The only reason Purdue runs the ball is just because it's like CJ Stroud carrying the ball 2 or 3 times last week. Hey, watch out. We might do this. And that's Purdue's attempt to run the ball. Hey, we might. I told you we did. Now it's 2nd and 9.
He's going to run ISO as a trick play on Saturday, and it's going to just blow people's minds. Yeah, I mean, there's just, you want Purdue. Like Purdue is like a please go ahead and try to beat us with your run game. Like, please, please, please. I mean, like, they may literally put a red carpet down on the field. Like, please, we insist, run the ball. We would love you to run the ball. They can't do it. Like, they can't do it against bad defenses. They can't do it against good defenses. They cannot. This is like a Dr. Seuss. They cannot run it in the rain. They cannot run it with their train. They cannot run it in their house. They cannot run it with a mouse. They cannot run it here or there. They cannot run it anywhere. 3.8 yards per carry, 3.4 yards per carry, 3.1 yards per carry, 4.1 yards per carry. Those are the 4 leading rushers. Those are the 4 people who have 15 or more carries on their team other than Jack Plummer this year. I mean, which of those is the scariest to you? Long run of the season, 31 yards. They've had one run of 30 yards or more. Like, I mean, go ahead, I guess. I mean, I think it's possible. I mean, Purdue has to run the ball a little bit. Like, they're almost like a run and shoot team where it's like, I mean, they have to run it a little bit, or like an air raid team. Like Mike Leach, you could just see him like rolling his eyes on the side, like, fine, I'm going to run the stupid ball because they keep playing 3-man front and dropping 8. Fine, but I'm not going to like it. Except those teams, when their running backs get 6 carries a game, but they average like 8 yards a run because Purdue can't even run it when you're not worried about the run. That's the really amazing thing there. So, yeah, I don't think Purdue's going to be able to move the ball so consistently enough to win the game, because they're going to have to rely on big plays to David Bell. Probably, I don't think they're going to be able to like do the methodical march down the field over and over and over again with the passing game. You may hit 1 or 2 drives like that, but you're not going to be able to do it throughout the course of the game. And, David Bell is fantastic, but David Bell's not going to score 6 touchdowns on Saturday. So, at some point they're either going to have to get some stops or have someone else do something.
Yeah. And these short passes, it's screens, it's, slants to all of these other guys that tackle those guys, keep them to that 9-10 yard average, and you'll be okay there. But Bell is so he's very good. He's they throw to him a lot. 64 catches on the season in 8 games, but probably, I don't want to say twice that many targets because they connect a lot as it is. So maybe 100 targets and this season, but 2 games this year have 11 catches and over 200 yards. But then you see like Wisconsin, 6 for 33, Nebraska 2 weeks ago, 9 for 74, at Notre Dame, 7 for 64. The Iowa game is a complete, like, what the heck, which was the 11 for 240, and the Michigan State 11 for 217. Still only scored 2 touchdowns in those 2 games, like total. He's got 5 touchdowns on the season. 3 of those came against UConn. So even if he kind of goes off, what's it going to get you? Like, what, is he going to be responsible for at most like 21 points in this game? And then where do the other, 14 points come from that you need to win? I mean, where does this Purdue defense contain, like, what's the low for Ohio State? Is it, is it 27 because of Ryan Day's love for the field goals? Is it 3 touchdowns and 2 field goals? Like, is 5 scoring drives all that Ohio State is going to manage in this game?
Yeah, I mean, if Ohio State's going to lose, like, that's where if they end up in that 24-27, like, that's where you could lose the game. And, you have one bad turnover, one pick six, one scoop and score, whatever. You could, I mean, I think I have Purdue scoring 24 points, 21 points. I'll check my pick before we do that officially. But, it's like the offense is going to score 17, 20, 24 points, something like that. You give up one additional stupid one, and you end up stuck in the 20s like Ohio State did last week. Ta-da, you have lost the game and blown your season. Like, that's all it takes. So, the margin for error now this week and pretty much from every game from here on out is not that big. Like, there are no more Rutgerses or Maryland's on the schedule this year. Like, these are going to be probably largely 4-quarter games, or at least 3+ quarter games. You have to score touchdowns when you have the ball, and you have to keep, just all you have to do is keep them out of the end zone. You're not going to get beat with field goals. If you keep the opponent out of the end zone, you're going to win the game. But you have to go more than 2 for 10 and scoring touchdowns in the red zone over the course of 2 games. Like, that is literally all this is going to come down to for the next couple of weeks is get 7s, give up 0s or 3s, and you're going to win. But They have just, the issues that keep kind of cropping up. And again, this is something that I talked to Ross about in a lot more detail, but the inability to run the ball in the red zone. Purdue or Ohio State, Ryan Day and Kevin Wilson earlier in the week talked about, long handoffs and screens and using those as an extension of the run game. It's like, that's fine. But when you get down into the red zone, or even, even closer to the red, inside the 10, like all of a sudden that stuff doesn't work anymore. And you're going to have to be able to run the ball. You have to be able to run the ball, or you've got to make, throws into real tight windows. And that's bumping up your degree of difficulty. And if you don't do that, then you're the team that's settling for threes. And that's when you get into trouble.
Yeah. Looking at the Purdue red zone offense, converting on through the course of the season, 38 red zone attempts, 19 touchdowns. So 50% conversion rate on touchdowns, not great. In conference play, they are 11 of 25 for 44%, which also not great. So if Ohio State holds them to that, then you got to like their chances. And maybe that's how Vegas has them as a 21-point favorite or 20.5-point favorite in this one, which seems high based on what we've seen of late. But when we ask, like, where do the points come from, if not from David Bell? And even David Bell has only scored in 3 games this year. Like, where do the points come from outside of him? And I don't know where. I don't know that they do. And you look at what they've done defensively. Purdue, they gave up 27 points to Notre Dame, 20 to Minnesota, 7 to Iowa. It doesn't count. They have no offense. 30 to Wisconsin. And again, I don't know how many of these are defensive scores the other way around. Mm-hmm. 23 to Nebraska, 29 to Michigan State. That conversion rate seems like Ohio State should be in the 30s somewhere at the very least. And, you see teams that have success running the ball against Purdue. Wisconsin ran for 290. Michigan State went for 182. That's about what Ohio State is doing in the Big Ten right now, because they've gone so long without rushing for 200. But, Nebraska throws for 269. Michigan State throws for 276. Oregon State 285 in the season opener. That's, conversion rate there for Ohio State. It could be 350. It could be 400. I mean, I don't want to say no telling. There is some telling. It should be well over 300 yards. For one, that's what Ohio State does. For two, that's the offense that they have, and those are the receivers that they have, and CJ Stroud. As long as they can keep George Karlaftis off of him, the defensive end, then I like the offense's chances of moving the ball down the field. Do they need to be totally effective running the ball? I would, I'll take the Michigan State 182 right now if that's what Ohio State's going to do, because I think they're going to throw for, 350 or whatever. If they run for 182, they're going to put 500 yards total offense on the field, on the scoreboard, don't you think?
Well, yeah, and the 182 is good information, but the 33 carries to get to 182 tells you, I mean, that's just a hair shy of 6 yards a carry. If they're running for 5.8, 5.9 yards a carry, they're going to have Ohio State's going to be just fine on Saturday. Wisconsin, 51 carries for their 290 yards. Again, that's like 5.9 yards per carry, give or take. The teams that get in trouble are the Iowas, 30 for 76, Nebraska, 29 for 130. Like, if you're running for 4 yards a carry, well, that's a very different story. That's you've got to be able to run the ball. You don't need to be averaging 9 yards a carry like Trevion Henderson was earlier in the year. If you can run for 6 yards a carry, that's plenty. You're staying on schedule by and large there. You just have to kind of be patient, and you're going to wear him down. I mean, George Karlaftis is fantastic, but the guy who's behind George Karlaftis, there's a reason I don't know his name right now, and it's because he's not nearly as good as George Karlaftis. So if you can keep that Purdue defense on the field, grind them down, wear them down, this is a team that has, a handful of really elite players. If you can stop them, if you can control them, the rest of the team is like, it's fine. It's like, this is a decent Purdue team, so it's fine. Like, this is not a Daryl Hazel Purdue team, but they're fine.
They're ranked.
But they're ranked, I think, based largely on, a couple really elite players who have made big differences in certain games. Ohio State is a far more talented team around the field, And, if they can run the ball, that I think is the thing I'm most interested to see on Saturday. Number one, on the defensive side of the ball, how are they covering David Bell, and how do they do covering David Bell? Because they're going to be facing better receivers, later on in the season now. But also, can they run the ball? Can they run the ball in the red zone in particular? Like that's the kind of stuff that I really want to see, because if they can't, like that's something that's going to catch up with you. Like when you lose a game, it is going to be because you kick too many field goals in the red zone. And when you kick too many field goals in the red zone, it's because you can't run the ball in the red zone. Like that's the thing Ohio State fans, if I let you pick one thing that you want to see happen on Saturday, Ohio State runs the ball really well, especially in the red zone. It should be right near the top of that list.
You figure 6 chances in the red zone. If they go 3 for 6, you might have a close game. You go 6 for 6, it's a blowout, and there's no concerns there. And that's what they are focused on this week, and getting the most out of their running game, and just really, hey guys, stop committing penalties. Let's do that and see what happens. It might open up a world of possibilities. And that was one of the things Day said on his radio show is, if you don't commit those stupid penalties, and he didn't say stupid, but those unforced errors and things like that, it's a different game. It's not a 9-point game or whatever. And, you go back to the week before of Travion Henderson false starting in the red zone, and just, hey, maybe stop doing that. And then you add another touchdown in, or another 4 points because of the field goal. So just do that. Tom, have you had a chance to look up your score prediction, and are you going to stick with that same score prediction? I do need to send mine in though. Yes,
I will stick with my score prediction. So do you want to make yours first, since I have mine written down? Okay.
I believe I went with 41-24 Ohio State. That's 2 field goals, because Ryan Day does like his guy. And I think at some point you want to see, let's maybe try like a 48-yarder. There's gonna be like a 4th and 13 or something, and you're like, well, let's just see. We've got to test him out. We've got to, he wants his career long. I think it's 49. Noah Ruggles, so he wants that 50-yarder. He said he's hit like 56-yarder in practice before, so put him to the test. Maybe try to get that first miss out of the season as well. I think that's what it's going to be. Ryan Day is going to try to get that first miss out of the season, because you don't want that in the postseason. And I know Ruggles will fail by continuing to make the kicks. So that's going to be frustrating for the head coach. But, I'm starting to feel better about this Ohio State defense. Like, as we talk about this game and where do the points come from, 24 almost seems like too many. And maybe I take the field goal off, but I think Jeff Brom knows that Ohio State will kick field goals now. So it's almost okay for the opponent to kick field goals, which is another way that Ryan Day, playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers, he has convinced people that he has fallen in love with field goals, to which they're like, ooh, I like field goals too. Boom. 41-24.
Ryan Day's Jedi mind trick worked out great on Scott Frost last week. Let's see if Jeff Brom's smarter than Scott Frost. I suspect that he is. I don't know if you could hear me audibly sighing when you announced your score pick, because as always, what is our proudest pregame tradition on our game preview shows?
Having very similar scores.
Ohio State 38, Purdue 24. How are we? It's like we couldn't, if we were trying to do this, we couldn't do this every week.
It's your disdain for the field goal that didn't have us having the exact same score.
I respect Ryan Day far too much to predict him to kick 2 field goals, sir. Yeah, I think the Ohio State defense is significantly improved from the beginning of the season. I think that's pretty much inarguable. They gave up a couple 100-yard receivers against Penn State, so you've got to think David Bell's kind of going to get his. But I mean, I don't know that they can do it consistently enough. I think eventually the total inability to run, and the fact that Ohio State's defense is better, and the fact that Ohio State's pass rush is better, and the fact that, potentially you've got an offensive line that may have to be dealing with crowd noise and that kind of stuff, and you get a false start here or there, you get one holding penalty, like all that stuff derails drives. If you can't run the ball and you can't stay on schedule, you throw it, you run for 2 yards on first down, you throw an incomplete pass on second down, then you were in a very, very bad spot on third down. I think Purdue will hit a couple plays, maybe, hit 1 or 2 big plays, 1 or 2 kind of sustained drives, but not be able to do it consistently enough to keep up with Ohio State. And, we'll see. 38 points may be a little optimistic on how often Ohio State will be, scoring touchdowns in the red zone. But it seems like, you probably get a turnover in a short field at some point, or a defensive score or something like that for Ohio State to maybe help get them there. But Yeah, I think that's about right. I said right at the beginning of the year, a week when the lines got released, 19 seems high. It doesn't seem as high as I thought, initially thought, but I think it's still a little bit high because I kind of need to see the Ohio State offense do some of the stuff that they haven't done for a few weeks until I really am completely bought in on them again.
Yep. And just so people know, Penn State or Purdue has given up 25 sacks this year. So that's quite a bit, 2.7 per game, while they've only managed 15 of their own. So Aiden O'Connell is going to be under pressure normally. And this Ohio State defensive line right now is doing a very good job of pressuring. I think they're fourth in the nation in sacks. So I don't see that stopping this week and should actually increase. Now, I'm not saying something so stupid like Ohio State's going to have 5 more sacks than Purdue. That's stupid. Nobody would ever say that about Ohio State and an opponent. But yeah, so just keep an eye on that. Tyreek Smith, we know he's playing very well. Zach Harrison, Javante Jean-Baptiste getting in there, JT Tuimoloau, Jack Sawyer, they're all getting better and better. And the veterans are turning it on in the interior as well. So I think the Ohio State defensive line is going to have a lot of say about how David Bell is, how well he is contained. Tom, anything else about this game that you want to talk about that we won't eventually talk about on Friday's live stream or Saturday's pregame live stream show?
There's nothing conceivably that we wouldn't talk about on those two. So you could, bad news, friends, you only have about 4 more hours of us before kickoff. So I'm sure you'll be able to make do with just that small amount of football talk from us in the future.
Yes. And if we haven't mentioned whatever you wanted us to talk about today, feel free to ask us to talk about those things on Friday or Saturday, and we will do that for you. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube right now, go ahead and hit the like button. That helps us out. Also, if you want to hit the notification, the subscription bell, and be notified whenever we drop a video or go live, like I said, a couple of times this weekend, 3, in fact, Friday, Saturday before the game, Saturday after the game, boom, you'll be notified. And if you'd rather just listen to this, you can find us at any podcast platform. Just search for the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. And boom, there we are. So thank you all, and we will talk to you guys later.